Iran's unveiling of the so-called drone beast should be understood not as a simple military announcement, but as a carefully calculated strategic signal aimed at multiple audiences at once. To the international community, it sends the message that Iran is not isolated, weak, or technologically stagnant. To regional rivals, it communicates deterrence by showing that Iran possesses the capability to strike from a distance with precision and persistence. And to its own domestic population, it serves as a symbol of resilience, innovation, and national pride in the face of economic sanctions and political pressure. In modern warfare, drones have become one of the most powerful tools for countries that do not possess massive air forces or unlimited defense budgets. Unlike traditional fighter jets, drones are relatively cheaper to produce, easier to maintain, and far more flexible in deployment. This makes them ideal instruments of asymmetric warfare, where a nation uses smart, targeted technology to balance the overwhelming conventional power of stronger opponents. By investing in drone capabilities, Iran is effectively changing the rules of engagement, moving away from expensive platforms and towards scalable systems that can operate in large numbers. Another important dimension of this development is psychological warfare. When a country publicly unveils a new weapon system, it is not only showcasing hardware, it is shaping perception. The name itself, designed to sound powerful and intimidating, plays a role in influencing how opponents calculate risk. If rivals believe that a drone fleet can overwhelm air defenses, disrupt logistics, or threaten strategic assets, they may hesitate before taking aggressive action. This hesitation is exactly what deterrence aims to create, not by guaranteeing victory, but by increasing the perceived cost of conflict. Sanctions and economic pressure have also played a major role in shaping Iran's defense strategy. Restricted access to foreign technology and international markets has forced the country to develop domestic alternatives. Over time, this has produced a military ecosystem focused on local production, reverse engineering, and innovation under constraints. While this approach does not always match the sophistication of Western systems, it creates independence and adaptability, allowing Iran to maintain operational capabilities without relying on external suppliers. The regional implications of this drone development are significant. In the Middle East, where tensions are already high and proxy conflicts are common, the spread of drone technology changes the balance of power. Drones can be transferred, shared, or adapted by allied groups, extending influence beyond national borders. This creates a networked form of deterrence, where pressure is not applied from a single point, but from multiple directions at once, complicating defensive strategies for opposing forces. At the global level, Iran's drone strategy reflects a broader shift in military competition. Power is no longer measured only by the size of armies or the number of aircraft carriers. It is increasingly measured by technological creativity, production efficiency, and the ability to integrate new systems into real-world operations. In this sense, the drone beast represents more than a single weapon platform. It symbolizes a transformation in how states seek influence, security, and leverage in a rapidly evolving geopolitical environment where innovation becomes a substitute for traditional dominance and where strategic messaging becomes as important as battlefield performance. The movement of a U.S. Armada toward a tense geopolitical region is never a neutral act. It is a deliberate demonstration of power designed to shape behavior, send warnings, and establish psychological dominance. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, and support ships do far more than transport weapons. They represent a floating extension of national authority, projecting the message that the United States has both the capacity and the willingness to intervene. This kind of military presence is built on the idea of deterrence through visibility, where strength is not hidden but displayed for the world to see. However, the presence of such massive naval forces often carries unintended consequences. While the official narrative emphasizes stability and protection of global trade routes, rival states frequently interpret these moves as provocation rather than reassurance. When warships enter contested waters, they create a climate of constant surveillance, close encounters, and heightened alert levels. In such environments, even routine maneuvers can be misread as hostile actions, and small incidents can quickly escalate into major diplomatic or military crises. There is also a symbolic dimension to naval deployments that goes beyond military strategy. For domestic audiences, these moves are often framed as strong leadership and decisive action. Politicians use images of aircraft carriers and uniformed personnel to reinforce narratives of national strength and global leadership. This spectacle plays well in the media, generating dramatic headlines and emotional reactions that can influence public opinion. In this sense, the Armada is not only a tool of foreign policy, but also a stage for political theater at home. From an economic perspective, sustaining a large naval presence is extremely costly. Fuel, maintenance, personnel salaries, and logistical support require enormous public spending. These resources could be directed towards social programs, infrastructure, or economic development, yet they are instead allocated to maintaining a constant state of military readiness. This reflects a broader pattern where national budgets prioritize defense expansion, often at the expense of domestic welfare, reinforcing the idea that security is achieved through force rather than social stability. Another critical factor is the impact on regional dynamics. When the United States increases its naval footprint, regional allies may feel emboldened, while rivals feel threatened. This creates a chain reaction where neighboring countries respond by strengthening their own military capabilities. Arms purchases rise, defense budgets expand, and a regional arms race begins to take shape. Instead of creating a balanced environment, the initial show of strength can trigger a cycle of escalation that becomes difficult to control. The technological aspect of modern naval forces also adds complexity. Advanced radar systems, missile defense platforms, and integrated command networks make these fleets incredibly powerful, but they also create dependence on digital infrastructure. Cyber vulnerabilities, electronic warfare, and information manipulation now play a central role in naval strategy. This means that the battlefield is no longer limited to the sea, but extends into invisible digital spaces where attacks can occur without a single shot being fired, and where disruption can be just as damaging as physical destruction. The economic dimension of militarization is often hidden behind patriotic language and national security narratives, yet it plays a central role in shaping global conflict. When tensions rise and defense budgets expand, a powerful network of industries, contractors, and financial interests begins to benefit. Weapons manufacturers receive long term contracts, technology firms secure research funding, and logistics companies gain new opportunities for profit. This creates a system where economic incentives become closely tied to geopolitical instability, turning conflict preparation into a steady source of revenue. As governments allocate more money to military spending, public resources are redirected away from essential social services. Healthcare systems struggle with underfunding, schools face shortages, and infrastructure projects are delayed or cancelled. While politicians argue that security must come first, the reality is that true stability depends on the well being of citizens. When everyday needs are neglected in favor of expanding arsenals, social inequality deepens and public trust in institutions weakens, creating internal pressures that can be just as destabilizing as external threats. The global arms trade further complicates this picture. Weapons are not produced only for national defense, they are exported, marketed, and sold across borders. Countries compete to become major arms suppliers, using diplomatic influence to secure deals and expand their market share. This transforms weapons into commodities where demand is driven not only by real security concerns, but also by political alliances and economic interests. As a result, regions already experiencing instability often become saturated with advanced military equipment, increasing the likelihood of prolonged conflict. Stock markets also respond to rising tensions in predictable ways. Defense company shares often increase in value when conflicts intensify or when new military programs are announced. Investors see war preparation as a growth opportunity, and financial institutions adjust their portfolios accordingly. This dynamic creates a troubling connection between global insecurity and private profit, where the anticipation of conflict becomes a factor in economic decision making. In such an environment, peace can appear less profitable than continued tension. Another important aspect is the long-term financial burden of military expansion. Warships, drones, missile systems, and advanced surveillance networks require constant upgrades and maintenance. These costs do not disappear after a crisis fades from the headlines. Instead, they become permanent fixtures in national budgets, locking governments into cycles of continuous spending. Over time, this limits economic flexibility and reduces the ability to respond to social or environmental challenges such as climate change or public health emergencies. At the international level, militarization distorts development priorities. Countries facing pressure to strengthen their defenses may divert funds from poverty reduction and economic growth programs. This reinforces global inequality, where wealthy nations continue to expand their military capabilities while poorer nations struggle to meet basic human needs. The result is a world where resources are concentrated in instruments of destruction rather than in systems that promote cooperation, education, and shared prosperity, revealing a global economic structure that often rewards conflict more than collaboration. Political theater has become a defining feature of modern leadership, especially during periods of international tension. When leaders adopt aggressive language, dramatic gestures, and bold military postures, they are often speaking to two audiences at once: foreign rivals and domestic voters. On the global stage, strong rhetoric is used to project confidence and deterrence. At home, the same rhetoric is designed to inspire loyalty, rally supporters, and create a sense of unity against an external threat. This dual purpose strategy turns foreign policy into a performance where perception can be just as important as reality. Domestic politics plays a powerful role in shaping how leaders respond to international crises. When economic challenges, social divisions, or declining approval ratings put pressure on a government, external conflicts can be used as a distraction. By shifting public attention toward national security and external danger, leaders can reduce scrutiny of internal problems. This tactic has been used throughout history, where the image of a strong leader standing up to a foreign opponent becomes a tool for maintaining political power and controlling the narrative. Media amplification further intensifies this political theater. News channels, social platforms, and online commentators often focus on dramatic sound bites, emotional language, and sensational headlines. This environment rewards leaders who speak in bold, confrontational terms, even when such language increases tension. The more dramatic the statement, the more attention it receives, creating a feedback loop where political success becomes linked to spectacle rather than thoughtful policy. Over time, this encourages performative leadership instead of strategic decision making. Another key element is the use of symbolism. Military visits, speeches delivered in front of flags and warships, and carefully staged announcements are all designed to create powerful visual messages. These images are shared globally and instantly, shaping public perception across borders. For supporters, they reinforce pride and confidence. For opponents, they serve as warnings. In this way, leadership becomes a form of branding, where strength is marketed and displayed like a product. However, political theater carries serious risks. When leaders rely too heavily on dramatic posturing, they can trap themselves in their own narratives. Backing down after making strong public statements can be politically costly, so leaders may feel pressured to escalate rather than compromise. This reduces the space for diplomacy and increases the likelihood of confrontation. What begins as a symbolic show of strength can gradually transform into real policy decisions with long term consequences. The impact on democratic accountability is also significant. When citizens are constantly exposed to fear based messaging and nationalistic rhetoric, critical debate becomes more difficult. Complex international issues are simplified into us versus them stories, leaving little room for nuance or alternative perspectives. This environment discourages informed public discussion and strengthens the emotional appeal of strongman politics, where leadership is measured by toughness rather than wisdom or cooperation. The future of warfare is being reshaped by rapid technological advancement, and this transformation is altering the meaning of power, security, and conflict itself. Traditional battlefields defined by tanks, troops, and territorial occupation are giving way to digital networks, autonomous systems, and remote controlled platforms. Drones, artificial intelligence, and cyber capabilities now operate at speeds and scales that human decision making struggles to match, creating a new environment where wars can unfold silently and invisibly before the public even realizes what is happening. One of the most significant changes is the reduced physical distance between decision makers and the battlefield. Operators can now conduct missions from thousands of miles away, sitting in control rooms rather than on the front lines. This distance lowers the immediate human cost for the side deploying the technology, but it also risks making the use of force feel easier and more routine. When the emotional and physical consequences of conflict are removed from direct experience, political leaders may be more willing to authorize military actions, believing they can achieve objectives with minimal domestic backlash. Artificial intelligence adds another layer of complexity. AI systems can analyze vast amounts of data, identify targets, and optimize strategies faster than any human team. While this efficiency can enhance defensive capabilities, it also raises serious ethical and strategic concerns. If machines are allowed to make or heavily influence life and death decisions, accountability becomes unclear. When errors occur, responsibility can be shifted between programmers, commanders, and political leaders, creating a dangerous gap in moral and legal oversight.